Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you my likes and dislikes of the Vauxhall Grandland Sport Nav. So I've had this car for getting on for 3 years. It's a 1.2 3-cylinder petrol turbo, and generally it's a really nice car. It does everything that Vauxhall set out to achieve, I think, pretty much. It's a family car. So, what do I like? Well, I like the styling. It looks very much like any other sort of small SUV, Qashqai, Sportage, that sort of thing. It's got hints of BMW in it, it's got hints of Audi in it, all the sort of styling cues. And generally, I think it's pretty successful, it looks all right. I like the engine. This little 3-pot 1.2 turbo develops 130 horsepower, which is more than enough for the job that this car is intended to do. If you can just hear it, I'm not sure you can hear it on my microphone, but it's got a lovely little triple sound. Sounds a bit like my Triumph Street Triple, actually. Triples sound unique, and this one's got quite a throaty little sound. It's nice. It's got a nice spread of torque. I've never thought when I'm driving this in traffic on the motorway or anything like that that I needed more power to get up long motorway hills or anything like that. It's easily able to keep up with modern traffic. The other thing I do like is the suspension. Now, we all know the state of Britain's roads. They are shockingly bad. And I think Vauxhall probably realised this when they designed this car and thought that they would do their utmost to make the passengers feel comfortable. So I'm heading out now for a piece of road which is dreadful, and I'm going to drive over it and be extremely comfortable, actually, because it copes with it so well. Right, this is a terrible piece of road. You can probably see me getting jiggled about a bit. It's like a patchwork quilt of rubbish repairs. If I drive over this road in my Mini Cooper S, I literally get my fillings shaken out, and it threatens to spring the Mini into the hedge at any moment. It's shocking. But look, this has gone over it with absolutely no problems whatsoever. So what else do I like? So these things, I wouldn't say I like, as in I would want them in my ideal car, but I think they fit the design criteria of this car perfectly. The power steering is very, very light. You can use your finger to steer this car. And that goes for all the controls. The gearbox is very, very easy to use. So light. The brakes, the merest hint of your foot on the pedal and the brakes are on. The clutch pedal, extremely light. And I think this has been done on purpose to make the car really easy to drive, and it certainly is. Of course, all those things for me mean that the car lacks any feedback. You've got no idea where your front wheels are or what they're doing through this steering. It's terrible for that. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of grip. It seems to grip even though the car, because of the soft suspension, will roll over so that the door handles are almost scraping the ground if you're pushing on. The super powerful brakes, they're either on or off, they're a bit binary. But I think that's what it's been designed to do. You're not supposed to go hooning around back roads in it. It's just not for that. I think the dashboard and the interior is very nice. You've got soft materials where you sort of expect to find them. A little bit of faux stitching, looks quite nice. And you've got harder materials down here where your feet are, so that when they get covered in mud and rubbish from your dog or your kids or whatever, it's easy to wipe off. The instruments are nice. You've got rev counter, speedometer, temperature gauge and fuel, which is pretty much all you need to know, and you can see them at a glance. And in between the rev counter and the speedometer, you've got a digital display which displays your speed or your sat nav instructions as they come up, and all your sort of trip computer information, and that's fine. The other controls are nice in that there is a knob for the volume on your radio or your media, whatever you're playing, and there are actual controls you can turn to increase or decrease the temperature in the climate control, as they should be. And then surrounded by those, you've got buttons with a tactile feedback that you can press for functions. The ones for the heated rear window and things, though, they are a little bit small and sort of hidden behind the control knob for the climate, and they're not always easy to see. You get used to them, but that could have been a little bit better. However, it's much better than the current tendency for manufacturers to put everything on a touchscreen with no tactile feedback. There's some buttons on the steering wheel for your volume, for your cruise control and all that sort of thing, which you'd expect to find. And that's all well and good. There we are, hit the rev limiter. It does rev very easily, this engine. And I hope there you could hear that throaty triple sound, which is quite nice. The seats are very firm, and whilst they're initially comfy, on a long journey, after 2 or 3 hours in the car, I do find myself getting a bit of a numb bum. If you're a bit more well upholstered in the derriere than I am, you may not have that problem, but it's something that I get. There's adjustment for your thighs, so you can lengthen thigh support there if you're particularly long in the leg. Pretty easy to get comfy in this car, no matter what size you are. The pedals, though, it's not a small car, so there's plenty of room inside the cabin. So why are the pedals so close together? I'm a size UK 10, and I often find myself dabbing the brake pedal when I go to change gear, accidentally. And given that the brakes are so sharp and sensitive in this car, you almost come to a standstill. I have to wear ballet pumps, really, if you want to drive with any precision. Why are these pedals so close together? That's one thing I don't like. This being the Sport Nav version, it has the built-in navigation. Now, I used to think built-in navigation was a good thing. Less wires trailing around and plugging in to get supply and all that for your standalone sat-nav. Built-in sat-navs that I've had in cars up to now haven't been as good as the standalone ones that I've also had in other vehicles. This one is by TomTom, and it works generally, and it also mirrors the display when you're coming up to a junction on your the central display, so you don't have to take your eyes off the road and all that sort of thing. But like all these screens, there's a tremendous amount of glare on the screen, and which always happens when you want to actually look at it. So this one, I don't know what it is, but sometimes it acts like it's got a hangover. It's just not quick enough. It tells you that your turning is coming up when you have already thought, this is probably my turning, and have driven past it. That's happened a few times. Most of the time it's okay, but occasionally it goes on a bender or something and wakes up hungover and in a bit of a bad mood. I wouldn't necessarily spec a car with built-in nav anymore. And I think, to be honest, nav is going to go the same way as CD players, pretty much, because the phone is going to take over. And we're just going to use Waze and Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever to navigate. That's my opinion anyway. This car is also equipped with Apple Carplay. Now that sounds brilliant, and I use an iPhone, and I was thinking when I spec'd this, oh, it's got Apple CarPlay, absolutely brilliant. However, it's actually rubbish. Whilst the Apple phone interface is perfectly fine when you're sat there looking at your phone, when you're trying to drive a car and keep your eyes on the road, and then try to use these non-tactile buttons and the same interface that you have on your phone to find your music and to find your contacts, it's terrible. Yes, I know, it's got voice activation and I should be able to speak to it and it should do things that I ask it to do, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. So Apple CarPlay, sorry, not bothered. As for practicality, which for a car like this is pretty important, it's got plenty of room to seat 5. Useful things like being able to fold the rear seats down from the boot, excellent. Load space is fine, the hatch at the back opens up really easily. It's very light and it's made of plastic, which is a good thing. Economy-wise, on a run, using cruise control, I've managed to get 49.5 miles per gallon out of this car, which I thought was pretty good. Around town, I get around 37 miles to the gallon. So for me, who's never been the most... This particular car is also fitted with automatically dipping main beam headlights, which I quite like, and I admit I was a bit skeptical as to whether they'd actually work, but they do. The funny thing is that when I was in college, one of my projects was automatically dipping headlights, as I thought that would be a good thing. And I did build a system, and it sort of worked. And this was back in 1979. This particular version of the Grandland that I'm driving also has the fancy diff, which has settings for snow and sand and all this sort of thing. And it comes with strengthened 5-spoke alloy wheels and larger profile Michelin Cross Climate tyres. Now, I've never had cause to use this fancy diff since I've had the car. We just haven't had any snow, and I don't often drive on sand and mud and things like that. But the Cross Climate tyres, I must say I found them excellent. They grip in the dry, and they have fantastic grip in the wet and the greasy, slimy, cold conditions that we get in the UK most of the year. As an alternative to the Nissan Qashqai, which I've also had, I think this is a good alternative. I think comparing the two, the Qashqai was probably a bit better to drive, but wasn't as compliant as the Grandland over the terrible road surfaces we have in the UK. So this is a bit of a road that I'm on here, and I'm at the legal limit, and I didn't have to slow down or brake for those bends, so the car does go round corners. There's no question about that. It's just that I had really no feel. I was sort of working on trust. Another nice little feature is the blind spot indicator in the mirror. A little orange LED lights up when there's a vehicle that you probably can't see but is a little bit too close. That's nice. The mirrors tilt when you go into reverse. That's nice. They automatically fold when you lock the car. That's nice. It's a nice visual indicator when you lock up at night and look out to the drive and wonder if you've locked the car up. If the mirrors are folded, yes you have. Storage space-wise, you've got something under this armrest. You've got something here in front of the gear stick. That also has a USB socket in it, and you need the fingers of a 3-year-old in order to get down there to plug the USB plug in. You've got storage bins in the doors, they're big enough. Got an electronic parking brake, which is auto release. It comes on when you turn the car off. There's also stop start on this, and it's pretty much like any stop start that I've ever experienced. It has a mind of its own as to when it's going to work. Most of the time it doesn't do anything, and then all of a sudden one day you'll pull it up in the traffic lights and the engine will stop. But what I'm going to do now is this road here has loads of speed humps in it. I'm just going to ride over them. Now, I'm going over these way quicker than you should, and I can really hardly feel them. And they're not making that much of a noise. And now here we're on cobbles. Again, hardly feel it. And some more speed humps. These are a bit more vicious. Now these are the big plastic ones that they bolt down. They're that sort of speed hump. And I'm hitting those at over 40 miles an hour. And you can see that the car just glides over them like they're not there. So if you like a nice comfy urban ride, this car's got what you need. It's got very compliant suspension. But you can see that on this bend here, which is quite tight, it does roll quite a bit. The heating and the aircon, that's good. It works. Gets you cool in the summer and warm in the winter. I'll mention while we're driving it as well the lane departure system, which comes on when you turn the car and you have to make an effort to turn it off. It doesn't do anything below 37 miles an hour, so driving around town and things like that, you're not going to get the steering wheel pulling at you this way and that. On the motorway, if you fail to indicate as you cross the white line, you will get a tug. If you indicate, then whilst the indicators are on and for 10 seconds after the indicator's been turned off, the system turns itself off so you don't get a pull over the white line. So if you use the quick flick indicators to get 3 indicators, now the system will be off as you cross the white line. So you get used to it, and it sort of forces you to indicate, which is good driving really, isn't it? If you're on a road where you will be crossing white lines and that sort of thing, straight lining corners, hitting the apex, you can just simply hold the button for 10 seconds and turn it off. Together with the lane departure, you've also got speed sign recognition. These are all probably moves by governments and legislation towards road pricing and road charging and automatic speed limit enforcement and all those kinds of things. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if there was a little box to tick when Vauxhall plug this into their computer to enable automatic speed limiting when it reads the sign. It's only a matter of time before we all get that. No stop-start today by the looks of things. Come on, fella. There we go. You can go. The green arrow's on, mate. Come on. You need to read the highway code. So, to sum up, it's a car. It's well made, it's economical, it's fast enough, it's got plenty of room in it. If you're a family and you need transport, this is the sort of thing you should be looking at. If you want to drive like Lewis Hamilton and you want feedback and an involved experience, then this is not the car for you. I was looking at the second-hand price of these, and they're pretty much a bit of a bargain, really. One of these, with 10,000 miles on, which is hardly anything, it's hardly run in, really, I was seeing on dealers' forecourts with warranties and all that sort of thing for round about £16,000. For what you get, that's cheap. So if you're not bothered about the badge and you want this sort of car, give it a look.